Welcome to How to Run Profitable Retreats podcast, the podcast that guides you not to only host retreats that thrive financially, but also transform people's lives. I'm your host, Leni Cavazos, and each week I bring you the best strategies and personal insights to help you create retreat experiences that transform lives, both your clients and your own. In our journey together, we'll dive into the secrets behind successful retreats, from crafting a unique atmosphere to mastering the logistics that ensure profitability. Whether you're tuning in for inspiring interviews with leading retreat experts or seeking actionable advice in our solo episodes, this podcast is your go-to resource for turning your retreat visions into reality. Don't miss out on any of our episodes and subscribe now. For more tools and a free guide on creating your own six-figure retreat business, visit theretreatplanner.com. Now let's get started and make your retreat dreams come true. Welcome everyone to another episode of How to Run Profitable Retreats. And I'm your host, Leni Cavazos, and I'm super excited to introduce you today to Fabrice Desmarescaux. Okay, please tell me, how do you spell your last name?
All right, Desmarescaux.
Desmarescaux. Oh, perfect. Okay, amazing. See, like I took French for 2.5 years, and like I can read French, but like speaking it, no way. So thank you so much for that. So I will tell you that he was born and raised in France, of course, and he has spent over 30 years making waves in Asia, right? So right now, this is a beautiful moment. I am in Mexico and he's in Jakarta. So we get to connect with people across the world. Isn't that like absolutely wonderful? And he made waves as a business executive, and he started as a career management in consulting. And he partnered with boards, CEOs, and C-suite leaders to craft and implement transformative strategies that drive success. And we're going to be talking more about this. So please hang on with this episode, right? And for the last 15 years, not just little, 15 years, right? He has channeled his passion for coaching, empowering clients to unlock their potential, right? He's known for building strong connections with his clients, offering a supportive and non-judgmental space that fosters introspection and growth. And Fabrice not only empathizes with their challenge, but also inspiring them to explore new horizons. And he is just so many amazing things, right? So he's a team coach, he's a yoga and meditation teacher, and he brings holistic practices into his coaching. And he holds an MBA from INSEAD and MSc in civil engineering from École Centrale Paris. And he's also skilled in using psychometrics tools like Hogan Predictive Index and the Enneagram. Yeah, I was reading your book, and please, for all of you who want his book, The Art of Retreats, in the show notes, you'll have the link to get that book. But I was reading your book and I was like looking at the Enneagram and I was like, oh, he brings Enneagram into retreats. I love that, right? It's such a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you, Leni. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about our conversation today, because today we're going to be bringing again this topic that I am so passionate about, that is all about like, what are the difference between, like, let's call it air quotes, regular retreats and your corporate space, because it's a completely different animal. And I do believe truly, truly deep into my heart, right? And that's why I have a program actually to teach people how to run corporate retreats, that more people in the corporate world need to become more conscious. We need more conscious lawyers, more conscious doctors, more conscious attorneys, more conscious everything. You don't need to quit your job and hike in a van for the rest of your life in order to become more conscious. You can do it wherever you are and you can improve your life. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree. I totally agree. We need more conscious everything. And retreats are a fantastic gateway to start people on the path. We may not accomplish everything on a retreat. As you know, it's a journey. There's no destination. It's not like a one-off. I go on a retreat for a weekend and ta-da, I'm enlightened. But what I found with corporate retreats is that it's a very good way to get people started. And sometimes people are not interested and they say, okay, well, it was nice, but now I'm going to go back to my usual life and business career, etc. And some people say, wow, that was really an interesting experience. How can I find out more? How can I continue on this path? So it's not the absolute magic wand that will cure all problems of the world, but I think it's a great gateway to get people started on the path.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, because so many people think that if you go to one retreat, you're going to solve all your problems, right? And going to the retreat can be the gateway, like you said, to actually change your life and to create a huge difference. But it does require a certain process of integration, right? And like, how do I integrate that into my day-to-day life so it doesn't become just a one-off thing, like a thing that I do once a year, and then afterwards I just go back to my regular self? It's about the process of like, okay, now I became aware, right? Now I have the tools to change it, but now I need to implement the tools, right? The application.
Yeah. And I think the integration is very important, because otherwise, we go on the retreat, we have a nice time, and then we come back, at the end of the retreat, we all hug and we all promise that we're going to stay in touch, and we all swear eternal loyalty to the group, etc. And then we go back home and nothing happens.
Yeah, and you're back in the office with these people,
Yeah.
and then you're like fighting again, right?
Exactly.
The bliss goes away.
So if you want to make it a more lasting impact on the people who attend your retreats, I think it is very important to start the integration process during the retreat itself by bringing people to reflect on all the good things we've learned, we've practiced, we've deepened during the retreat. How can I keep the practice going? And have an explicit discussion with the participants in the retreat about how are they going to continue holding the flame without letting that flame extinguish itself. So it could be, okay, what practices do we want to adopt? What rituals do we want to adopt? And it doesn't have to be, I'm going to meditate for 2 hours a day, etc., because that good intentions like that never last. But as a retreat leader, I find it important to help the retreat participants to identify and commit to a few very simple practices or rituals that will allow them to continue carry on the work that they've started in the retreat.
I love this. Like, this reminds me, I went to a meditation retreat once, and it's from an amazing meditation teacher, right? And he's so great, and like his tools were great, but he was like, one of his like suggestions was to actually like meditate at 4 a.m, and then you meditate, you read for 50, like you meditate, I think for like, it was like 45 minutes or something, then you read for 15, and then you exercise again, like, so that's kind of like your morning practice. And I was like, that sounds great, like on paper, right? And I started like waking up at 4 a.m. to meditate. And at the beginning, I will get out of my bed, go sit on a chair and actually do it, right? As the days kept going, then I was just like sitting next on my bed, right? Like this kind of little like practices. And 3 weeks later, I realized I was so moody and I had to take a nap in the afternoon, because 4 a.m. for me is not a time where I shine.
Well, when I was younger, I had an inclination to tell people what to do because I knew better. And I've realized that's not a very good approach. So I believe that people and the retreat participants in particular have to find their own tools, recipes, cadence, rhythms that work for them. So as a retreat leader, essentially, we're holding the space. We're facilitators. We're not necessarily teachers telling people what to do. I mean, we can be teachers in the sense that we can teach from the spiritual traditions. We can teach yoga and make sure that they do the poses in the right way and give them some adjustments, etc. But participants have to find their own way to continue with the work. And what works for a person at 4 a.m. is not going to work for you. Yeah. And I think part of our responsibility is to hold the space so that our participants will find what works for them in a place that is safe. They can experiment, and they're not going to be judged if someone says, I'm useless until 11 a.m. So be it. There's no need to judge them, even if our own practice entails waking up at 3 a.m. and meditating for 6 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Like, not everyone has the same style, personality, needs, requirements, right? Like, if you go into a corporate retreat, right, and someone tells you now you need to like meditate for 2 hours and then do yoga practice for 1 hour, is 3 hours, and then you're like, and then at what time do I drive to work? At what time do I spend time with my family? At what time do I actually work? Right? Like what's going on in this space, right? Like, it's all about these kind of questions that we need to ask ourselves in this space. Am I really like nurturing the nature of the person who's coming? Right.
I think that's very well said.
Yeah.
And for example, when people ask, okay, how should I meditate? Yeah, how long should I meditate? Where should I meditate? Should I listen to a meditation app, or should I put a candle in front? And my answer is always whatever works for you. Now, I can show you 6 different ways to meditate and we can practice them together. But ultimately, you have to choose a path that works for you, and you have to stick with it for a while, right? So don't give up too quickly. So if you're going to meditate using an app, try using that app for a month. And then if it doesn't work or you're not satisfied, then try something else. But there's a tendency today, to switch channels very quickly and not to stick. There's a little bit of these, I'm looking for a spiritual fast track or a spiritual shortcut. I'm going to try to meditate. Oh, that doesn't work for me. I cannot sit still for 20 minutes. My mind is always busy. I want to try something else. Okay, I'm going to try microdosing. Okay, that doesn't work for me either. So I'm going to try yoga. Any practice that is going to take you deeper than where you are today requires some level of persistence and consistency and effort and discipline. That will never change. Now, what practice you adopt, that really depends on what works for you.
Right. Yes. And I love this because I see it very often, like people jumping from practices and also really putting a lot of weight on external factors to be the ones where like the thing that is actually saving them, helping them, changing them. Right. So we put a lot of we give our basically we're giving our power to like plant medicines. We're giving our power to a certain type of breath work that you can only go if you do it with some people, right? We do it to a certain practice of yoga. There's so many different places where oh, that's the thing that is going to help me, when really it's something internal. And then those are just tools, right? They're not the solution. They're just tools. And I see a lot of people getting very confused in that space, right? Because they're like, oh, like in this world, right? And it's nothing, it's not anyone's really internal fault in the space, that as long as you're not aware of it, right? And you're avoiding it. But it's really like the place, the life, the time where we're living, where there's like so many things available for us in that moment, right? It's all about like this like immediate reward. It's like, oh, I do this, I get a game, right? I remember I was so obsessed with this game on my phone called Candy Crush, right? And I would spend hours. And at some point I learned that if I went backwards on time, I could still play without my 5 lives, right? And I was all about rewarding. I made another level. And it was an addiction. And I was like, what are you doing, right? You're spending so much time. Even if you're going to be spending so much time doing something like that, wouldn't you rather read a book that is going to give you something? Right? So it's all about understanding that as humans, we are so programmed right now in this moment to get this immediate reward. And we do the same with spiritual practices.
Yeah. And there's no immediate reward. I believe that whatever practice people adopt, they will find benefits after a time that is hopefully not too long. And see, the retreat in a way is a great way to kickstart a practice, because we go away for 2, 3, 4, 5 days in a beautiful environment, in a special place, and we have these special conditions that are created by the retreat leaders. So in a way, we're helping kickstart the practice by taking the participants out of their daily routine, environment, busyness, problems, etc., and we're putting them in a relatively what I call clean environment, right? A place of silence and solitude and a beautiful space. And that helps start the practice. But then you go back to your daily life where, suddenly there's traffic jams and there's emails and there's kids and there's taxes to pay and suddenly we're no longer in that 5-star resort. where everything was marvelous. The food was, now I have to prepare my own food. I don't have people to serve me my food, right? So
Yeah.
how do you, so that's where you need to stay on course and stick with the practices. And that's why it's important to identify a set of practices that will be practical once you go back into what I call the real life.
Yes.
Because it's easy in a retreat to be overly ambitious and say, oh, that was fantastic. I'm going to do an hour of yoga a day because, I feel so good after doing this for 4 days. But that may not be practical. So it is the responsibility of the retreat leader to help the participant transition back. We often overlook this transitioning out of the retreat back into life. And that's a crucial element of a retreat, as much as it is to transition from life into the retreat. So we always have an opening ceremony, a check-in process, etc. But I think closing the retreat is also very, very important, and allowing the participants to ease back into life after the retreat.
Yeah, I have to say, all the retreats and the way I teach people how to do retreat, the last day is an integration day. Even I always like bring integration each single day, but the last day it's just about integrating. There's nothing else. We're taking everything that we saw and then we're integrating and then we're making a plan. Like, how is that going to look in my life, in my personal life, the one that is only mine, the one that no one else will have? How would that translate, right? And I really feel it's in the space that like we need to understand that we need to create habits. And habits that take at least 21 days of repetition to start becoming like something that you do without really thinking. But there's also research that says for a habit to really stick and to become your reality, you actually need to do it for 90 days.
Yeah, I think the research varies on that, but for sure you need to stick with something for a while and not get discouraged, which is the challenge, because any path that is going to take you deeper, whether it's a somatic path with movement and or energy practices or meditation, etc., spiritual practices, whatever it is, it's hard work at the end of the day. There's no free lunch out there. You're not going to get enlightenment just by going to an ayahuasca retreat and then going back into your life after a week. All these spiritual shortcuts, I'm highly skeptical. I'm not saying don't do the ayahuasca retreat or what have you, but there's no shortcut. And all these I'm going to microdose, I'm going to take psilocybin, mushrooms, whatever, and I hope that's going to fast track me to a better place. It is very rarely the case. And what I find also is that in order to access higher levels of consciousness through whatever, again, right, spiritual practices, etc., you need a very solid foundation. You need to have sorted out your house first in terms of being grounded, having evacuated most of the triggers and potentially traumas, etc. You need to be relatively well balanced in your life already. And a lot of people try to access the higher levels of consciousness without having cleaned up their house. And my encouragement, and we see that in retreats very quickly, because you see all the neurotic behaviors come up when you ask people to sit in silence, for example. And it's you can be sure that if you try to address the higher part of the pyramid without having a solid foundation, you're not going to go very far. So I always encourage my participants, if they're unsure, to do a little bit of their own personal work before going on retreats that are too demanding.
Yeah, and I love this. And actually, you just reminded me of another retreat that I attended. So I attend a lot of retreats because it's part of my process and it's part of what I love doing, as like also like when I'm teaching, how could I know what's working and what's not if I'm like teaching other people how to run retreats, right? So I am in retreats like over and over again. And I love them because they also deepen my my personal knowledge. And I went to one retreat. It was like a couples retreat, but it was really all about self-love. And they said exactly the same. They were like, before you can really love yourself, you need to go clean the basement, that place where you stock everything you don't want to see. Because if not, you're creating and you're building on foundations are not solid, right? And those things, eventually they're going to come out, right? You're going to be the super sent person, right? And then someone is going to come and tell you that exact word that is a trigger, and then hell will break loose. So I really
that's
value what you're saying about foundations.
Yeah. And I find this is a conversation that's easier to have when we lead individual retreats. So the retreats where people sign up in their individual capacity. Right. So I've led a number of spiritual meditation, yoga retreats, and I put an offering out there, and people decide to sign up in their own, so occasionally individuals or sometimes couples, and they attend the retreat for their own personal benefit and growth. And then I lead corporate retreats. So these are typically organized at the request of the CEO and for the executive team. And we bring, so what is a group of 8, 10, 12, sometimes a bit more individuals on a retreat. And then there is a corporate agenda. So people don't sign up individually. You know, if you're a member of the team, you're told to go. And so the agenda and the way to handle these participants is completely different, because most of the people didn't ask to go on this retreat. Now they may be very happy. Usually they're quite happy because it's a very welcome break in what is normally a fairly hectic pace in the corporate world. But they show up at the retreat absolutely not prepared. So, for example, they still schedule calls during the retreats. Oh, you know, this is very important. Everything is very important, right? So this call is very important. I'm very busy. And that defeats the purpose. So when we do these when we plan the retreats, we ensure that most of the participants can clean up their agenda, clear their diaries, and can be present. Because it's very difficult to get the benefits of a retreat if you're not fully present. And unfortunately, we live in a society that has a culture of absence, not a culture of presence. We're constantly distracted. People have their phone with them. They look at their phone, even during meetings, they check their emails. So, you know, the body is in the meeting room, but the mind is somewhere else. And so when we create retreats for corporate teams, one of the preparation work that we do is asking people to clear their diaries. And during the check-in, so when we ease the team from their daily busy corporate life into the retreats, one of the first things we do during the check-in process is ask everyone, is there anything that is preventing you from being fully present today, tomorrow, the day after? And at least there could be stuff, right? But at least it's put out there on the table. So it's no longer the elephant in the room where people seem to be distracted. They're not present. They're checking their phones. But it's been put on the table. Say, sorry, I have a call at 11 a.m. and I will need to take it because blah, blah, blah. Or there's something going on at home and I need to check on my husband or my wife or my kids. Okay, now it's out there. You know, we'll manage the schedule so that you can take your call. But there's no longer this culture of absence, right? It's a culture of presence. So when you're in the retreat, you're fully present. And then if you need to step out for a moment, you step out and then you come back. But during the facilitation of the retreat, we noticed when we do that, the participants are extremely present. And I have unbelievable experiences with extremely senior corporate. I mean, typically I only work with the CEO and the C-suite. So I don't work below that. And so we're talking about people who have responsibilities sometimes for tens of thousands of employees, leading companies with market capitalizations of, you know, $50 billion, right? So these are individuals who are extremely senior, extremely accomplished business leaders. And I can have them for 8 hours in a retreat setting and no one will check their phone. And that's absolutely unbelievable. They will check their phone during the break. But when we are together in the retreat, practicing or discussing or exploring together what needs to be discussed or explored, the level of presence is unbelievable and very, very surprising, and not what you would expect from the typical corporate types who are always distracted and, with exhibiting ADHD behaviors, because there's always something on their mind. And even when they speak with you, many of them are not present. You can see that they are distracted. So part of the work we do in the retreat is actually to allow them and give them the tools to increase their level of presence, which then in turn will make them better leaders.
Look, I think you really said something so important. And it's really about speaking about the elephant in the room and just make it out there, like an open conversation. Hey, if there's something that's going to stop you, because I remember when I was working for Marriott's corporate office, and I used to organize kind of in a way, they were retreats. They were not called retreats, but we had different activities to bring more minds into the space. We had different type of speakers. There were meetings afterwards, to plan for the next year, for the next quarter, and all this kind of thing. So it was kind of a nice blend and everything. But I would say anytime there was a tiny break, it may be 5 minutes, everyone was laptops out, you know what I mean? And it was so hard to manage and be hey, phones off, this time you need to be here, right? And I think it's so important because they're so busy, right? And I remember I used to work 13 hours a day. I know, I was there, right? You're so busy in that space, and it just becomes a habit. It's normal, right? What if you get to see that there's a possibility, right? It's possible for you not to be on your phone 24/7, and nothing is going to burn. The company is not going to crash, right? Everything will be okay. People can wait for you to come out of your retreat to actually get back on your phone, as long as you plan and prepare properly and just advise people, hey, I'm going to be in this retreat. There will be no replies for me. If it's urgent, write urgent on the subject.
Yeah. Yes. And in the corporate world, it's relatively easy to do that, paradoxically, because the corporate executives I work with have all the support systems, the structure, the executive assistants, the team, the chief of staffs, etc., who can be minding the daily lives while they are on the retreat. Very often, actually, we bring these people with us to the retreat site. They're not in the meeting room in the retreat space, obviously, because the proceedings and the discussions are extremely confidential. But they are out there, and if something needs to be taken care of, it will be taken care of. So in a way, it's a perk of doing corporate retreats at the senior level, is that we have all the infrastructure that we need. I mean, my participants don't need to worry about booking their flights or booking their hotels, or everything is taken care of, and we go to the world's most beautiful resorts, etc., without having to worry for a second about how do I get a taxi from the airport, right? It's yeah. So in a way, the perks of the senior executive life is that a lot of things are taken care for you, and all you have to do, that's not a small ask, but all you have to do is to show up and be fully present. And even that is difficult, because even if everything is taken care of, you show up and you have 600 emails on your mind, plus a conference with the investors and whatever. And my role as a facilitator is to create a space where progressively that level of agitation and worry and constant fear, in a way, goes down, and we can finally slowly start being present, and being present to oneself and being present to each other. I'm talking about an executive team here, right? So how do we start really listening to each other? How do we start truly seeing each other? Because we're part of the same team, but very often we don't truly see each other. We don't know what's going on in people's lives and what are their deeper hopes and aspirations and fears and concerns, etc. So we create a space for these conversations to take place. But you don't ease into a conversation like that, straight from the airport, opening the meeting. All right, talk about your life. No, you have to create a progressive descent into the depth of the exploration. And then, as you said, towards the end of the retreat, progressively going back up, and how are we going to integrate what we have done during the retreat back into the daily rhythm of the corporate life.
So would you say that like a big piece of like the corporate retreats that you lead, and I do believe like most of the corporate retreats need these kind of like fully present, but it's also connected with like active listening?
That's a big part of it. That's a big part of it. The other thing, by the way, is that when I work with an executive team, I normally don't do one-off retreats because, as we've discussed, the effects are great, but they tend to revert back to the previous state. So I work with clients over usually a 1-year period, and that would entail maybe 4 quarterly retreats.
Okay.
And because it's the repeated application of the tools and the practices and the presence, etc., that really transforms the team. I cannot transform an executive team in just one retreat. I can help them, but I'm not a magician.
Yeah.
And so even though, you know, occasionally I like to think I'm pretty good at I mean, me and my teams, right, we're excellent at what we do, but we need the repeated application. So I see that as a journey. And when I speak to the CEOs, I say, look, if you really want to take your team from good to great, it's a journey. And I will walk that journey with you. And that will take 4 quarterly retreats at least. And we may continue into a second year or maybe even into a third year. In between retreats, I will observe the team, see how they're doing in their natural habitat, how they interact with each other. I will very often coach the CEO one-on-one in confidential conversations. And so one of the first things we do usually in the first retreat is practicing the art of listening to each other, not interrupting each other, listening between the words, listening for the space and what is not said, which is a whole different level of listening that you don't find very often in the corporate world, or you don't find it very often in life in general, right? Whether it's husband and wife or, you know, at school. When is the last time a teacher truly listened to a student, right? It just doesn't happen in real life. So we practice listening, and that unlocks unbelievable reservoirs of creativity and joy and fulfillment, and it creates a safe space. When you feel you're being listened to, you feel a lot safer than when you see that the person is listening but not really listening.
Yeah, and I think this is bringing me back to this, like, this part that you mentioned where people really need to set their foundations, right? So if we don't know how to listen, like there's no foundation for anything. Yeah. So it really, like for me, active listening is one of the foundational pieces of like good communication.
Yeah, and that takes practice and it takes time. But we've seen teams being completely transformed as when they start listening to each other and they start adopting some rules. Like, for example, when we put an issue on the table that we need to discuss, we will listen to everyone. So we'll go around the table and we will listen to everyone. And everyone will speak without being interrupted. And they know they're not going to be interrupted. So then they can take their time and really express and think at the same time, because most of us think as we speak. But if you fear that you're going to be interrupted by someone, if you just even catch your breath for a nanosecond, then you're going to try to blurt out what you have to say really, really quickly without thinking really well about it. So actually creating the space to think and speak without being interrupted transforms teams in almost a magical way.
Yeah, I also think most of the people are listening while they're thinking what they're going to reply. So you're not really listening because you're actually reacting to the other person and then seeing how are you going to place yourself higher than them, being more knowledgeable than them, right? There's always a competition. So I really feel this is so important as well, that like these, like, let's say techniques, tools, ways of living, ways of leading your business, they need to come from the top. and then it will permeate, right? So you don't need to like coach or take people in retreat from like a starting point level, because if the head team, right, like, you know, the C-suite and the CEOs are actually implementing that, it's going to permeate everywhere else, right? Because let's say there's the director of marketing or the VP or CMO, whatever we want to call it, and then he starts learning how to do active listening with the C-suite. He will also learn how to active listen to then the people who are underneath him, and then, you know, it becomes this ripple effect, this domino effect, and it's so powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
I also want to say that having like contracts with people with like at least 4 retreats for a year, it's a great business model.
Well, it doesn't hurt to lock up a client and have them commit. But you know, I think this is a question that every retreat leader should ask themselves: Are they in survival mode, or do they truly want to help their clients have, you know, and have impact on their clients? If you say, look, you know, yes, there's a business behind it. I need to make a living for sure.
Yeah.
But let's not put the cart before the ox. We need to first define what is our value proposition. And my value proposition, very clearly, is to, in the corporate world, is to transform the C-suite. And that's my brand. And that's why.
Yeah, and it's so clear. It's perfect.
The largest corporations and CEOs come to my firm, to my team, to me, because we deliver what we say we will deliver. Now, if a client says, "Oh, you know, I only have one afternoon, can you come and run a retreat for my team?" I will say no, and that's it. I'm not desperate to have more clients. Yeah. I have enough clients, and so I will only work with clients whom I believe I can help, not just because I want a quick check.
Yeah, 100%.
It makes no sense, because if I do that and I start saying yes to a lot of clients who are not committed to change, then I will destroy my reputation over time, because a lot of people will have worked with me and they will have had no impact to show for. So
yeah, I think it comes back to what you were saying, right? Sorry, like that, like, it's not about this quick fix, right? The fast track.
Yeah.
And it's so important to stay with your brand and being like honor your values and the integrity, and really knowing your offer as well, in the way of like how many like times do someone needs to work with you and for what length in order to get that impact, to get that transformation. It's not just about like, oh, I'm going to tell them they need 12. No. Right. It's about like, okay, so this is what I offer. And this is the realistic timeline for people to actually go from point A to point B. Correct. And that's what I'm like offering. That's it. There's no like, oh, yes, do you want these, you know, quick fix? And yes, like a lot of people in the space are in survival mode because they're not really profiting from retreats. They're struggling to get the clients. So they're like, well, this one, you know, I saw the other day someone like, pay what you can to come to a retreat. And I'm like, no, what do you mean like pay what you can? There's expenses. Like, what if I say I can pay $1? Does that, you know what I mean? Like, will that person also get the results and the transformation if that person is burnout, like the facilitator is burnout because they've been surviving for the past 6 months trying to get people to come to the retreats? I don't think so.
But you know, that is what we were talking about earlier. Before you start accessing higher levels of consciousness, you need to do the work on yourself. If you don't believe that you have fundamental worth and what you're doing is worthy, then yes, you can pretend to do spiritual retreats and whatever. But if you say, oh, pay what you can, you know, it sends the signal that I don't really think I'm worthy of anything. And if you don't think you're worthy, what qualifies you to be a retreat leader?
Yes.
So do the foundation work, you know, so that you are truly convinced that what you do is valuable, and therefore your participants will get a lot of value from you.
Mm-hmm.
And money should not be even in the conversation. And look, at the end of the day, because I operate both on the personal retreats that I've led And the corporate retreats, let's put it this way, I operate at a very, very high price point, right?
Like you should, because I can tell you're an expert in what you do. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's it. Easy.
Exactly. But you know, I do not aim to have 100% market share. If I have 0.01% market share, that's good enough for me. You know what? That's going to keep me and my team busy, and we'll have the best clients who are convinced that we can help them. And that's and sometimes the best moments of my commercial, you know, obviously I have a commercial activity where I prepare proposals and I discuss with CEOs and CHROs about how to structure their retreats, and that's part of my daily life. That's why I'm in Indonesia today to meet a client this afternoon. But sometimes the best time of my commercial life is when a client says, we're not going to do it, it's too expensive. And I said, you know, I can give you the phone book and there's 1 million people who will do it for 1/10 of the price. And please go and call them. And you know what? For what you want and your ambitions, maybe this is better than me, right? I mean, you would it could not be a good fit. So my advice to everyone who wants to be a retreat leader or is a retreat leader, so be very, very clear about what is your value proposition. Create a pricing that is commensurate with the value that you hope to create with your participants, and don't expect to have 100% market share. It's never a good strategy. A good strategy is to say, you know what, I'm only targeting this micro segment, whether it's, so in my case, it's CEO, and in the private retreats, it's very affluent individuals. But it could be I do retreat for couples, I do retreat for parents and their kids, or for fathers and their sons, or for mothers and their daughters. Yeah, find a segment where you're going to be absolutely the best. Then be very confident that you create value and price accordingly.
Yeah, like I like this phrase that is called riches is in the niches, right? And I make it a little bit like funny, like when I'm like with my clients, but I was like, you need to be the expert of what you do. Like, I'm like, I could be teaching people how to run online courses and do this and do that and all this kind of things. But I am the leading expert on how to learn, you know, how to implement, to host your own retreats where you can make a 6-figure business or more. I'm that person. I spend all my time reading books, going into courses, going into retreats, hosting retreats, right? Getting to know more women, like connecting, seeing what people need, what people are lacking. So I'm an expert in this field, right? And it's not that I couldn't do more things, right? And I think this is one of the questions that a lot of the people who are hosting retreats or have their coaching businesses struggle, right? They're like, but I could do this and I could do that. And I'm like, no, become an expert on one thing that you're truly, truly passionate about. That spot in the world where you want to change the world. And I can tell you, even the 1%, like 0.001 market share of that, it's a lot of people. You probably won't be able to serve all those people in your whole life. So you're good. There's enough clients out for everyone, but you do need to be the expert on the field. You need to put yourself out there and prepare yourself. And if you're feeling like, oh, maybe this is not worth what it is, go find out what's missing and get it, right? Yeah. Like, become a go-getter, not just like, oh, you know, I do this and I do that and it's great, but then you're never taking those steps forward.
Yeah. No, we see that in a lot of the helping professions, you know, whether it's yoga teachers, meditation teachers, because there's this weird belief that because we're helping others on a spiritual path, this should be free, or this is not valuable, or it's donations, you know, give what you can, etc. I think it's a very flawed business model in most cases. Yes. And I say it again, I will never put money first. You know, it's not what we do is a calling. It's not a job.
Right. Correct.
There's you know, many other things I do in my life, but this is what I want to do, and this is, you know, after you know, the accomplishment of a business career, this is what I do, and I truly love it, and money will be an outcome of me doing what I love doing to the best of my abilities and selecting clients who benefit from it. And I never let, money be an impediment. I don't think about it because it kind of twists the design. We're trying to, I want to achieve, 6-figure this or 7-figure that, and then how do I get it? And we become like a hungry ghost trying to. No, find what you love doing that has resonance in the market. Do it extremely well, and money is just a consequence. You don't need to worry about it. It's just pure flow, right? And I also wanted to pick on one thing you said. That retreat leaders need to go on retreats themselves. I mean, this is so important. It's like otherwise, it's like you're a doctor who smokes, right? Because you don't believe in your own medicine, or a coach who has never worked with a coach themselves. They'll say, "Oh, I want to coach others, but for me, no, I don't need a coach." No, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
If you have to practice what you preach, and so retreat leaders need to go on retreats, and that's why I wrote my book, because the art of retreats, because this is a very simple manual for individuals to curate and create their own retreats for themselves, so that they can, as we said, build the foundation, explore what's their inner journey, and that allows you to be a better retreat leader. And you do your own solo retreats, then you attend retreats that are created by others, and you see what works, what you like, what you don't like. You learn it. Being a retreat leader is very lonely sometimes, so you need to be in a community. You attend retreats that are done by others, and it's nice, right?
Yeah, and I do believe, like, when you're thinking about all these pieces, it's like, it's so important, right? Like, you need to nurture who you are. Like, everyone is like, "Oh, Leni, like, do you have like 2 coaches?" And I always have at least 2 coaches working with me. Like, always. Like, I always have 2 coaches on the space, because there are certain things that I can't see for my business. So I need someone else to come and see it the same way I do it for someone else. And I always want to improve, because then my services become better, so I can serve people better, right? So it's just this place where it grows and it grows and it grows. And I really see my business as a business. And a lot of the things that I see in this space of people who are like, "Oh, we're trade for this," or, like, pay what you want, or just for free, or all these kind of things. I think, like, I asked myself the question, and I heard the other day a podcast from, like, with Seth Godin, and he said, "Are you a freelancer or you're an entrepreneur?" And I always like thought that for myself. And then he said it very well, right? He said, like, if you're a freelancer, you're exchanging time for money. It's you. And then once you want to be an entrepreneur and have your own business, the business needs to work, even though if you're sleeping, right? There needs to be this process that goes beyond you. You're not the sole perpetrator of your, like, what you're creating. There's more to it, right? The impact is larger. So it's about shifting that perspective, and really, like, thinking that, like, your purpose is like the intersection between your passion and the things you're proficient on, right? Things you're good at, right? So you're an expert on whatever. And where is your passion? And that's where, like, that's the place where your purpose really meets. And for me, that's very, like, super powerful. It took me, like, very long to actually, like, find out the words on how to put it together, because I was like, it's not just about being passionate about something. You also need to be good at it. And you can't just be good at something and not be passionate about it in this business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
Agree.
So good. I really love everything that you've said about, like, the differences, and like how, okay, people want to fast track, and like corporate retreats in the space of, like, okay, talking from the top to the bottom and really fully being present, and also creating these programs that really allow people to go through the, like, deep transformation, right? Like, there is a company in Vienna that does, like, breathwork trainings for corporate offices. And they have a different model than yours. But also, I was like, when I had this conversation, and actually, I think it was like 2 years ago, or like maybe 3, like, it was a while ago. And they were like, no. For people to be able to use breath work in their workplace to release stress, they need to go on a retreat first. And then there's 6 months of training where every week there's a session where they can jump in. And then we have another retreat to then close the cycle, right? And then that becomes something that people in the corporate world can introduce to reduce stress, because breathing is so powerful to reduce stress, right? And I was like, this is so good, because it really is a business model, right? That's being created based on the needs, requirements, desires of the client. And of course, testing. I am sure they did not start with this model and they said, oh, this is the one that works, right? They had to go, they had to test, see what worked. The same way probably with you, right? Like maybe you didn't start saying, oh, it has to be 4, it has to be in a year, or it has to be this, or only these people, right? There's always a testing phase.
Of course, of course. And that's why money cannot be your objective.
Yeah.
Right? It has to be a consequence.
Love
because
it.
When you start, in a way, you're experimenting, you find a few willing clients to experiment with you. So maybe you don't price extremely high because you can, and I have these conversations very explicitly with clients. Sometimes I say, look, I'm not entirely sure about this. Are you willing to try it with me? You know what? I'm not going to charge you an arm and a leg for it. Maybe we go at cost. But I really need feedback. Right? So we don't have to be predatory with our pricing. We have to test and experiment. And then when something works, then it's extremely valuable, and I think we should charge for it. But you're right. I mean, we're entrepreneurs here. We're charting a path. You know, what I do probably didn't exist 10, 15 years ago, or it maybe existed in some very, very small circles. But, you know, there's a great appetite to do corporate retreats at the top, and an increasing number of CEOs want to bring their executive teams on retreats. And what I found is there's almost no one who knows how to do that.
Yeah.
Because it takes a special sauce. You know, you need to be an excellent retreat facilitator to start with, an excellent retreat leader. But you need to have a business understanding, because you cannot just go with the pure spiritual path or yoga, etc. That's not going to resonate in the C-suite. So you need to understand. I'm not an expert in all the industries of my clients, obviously, and they know much more about their business than I do. But I have a business background. I've been a business executive for 25 years. I know how to read a P&L and a balance sheet and create a marketing plan. I've done all these things. I was a C-suite
and you know
leader.
How to communicate with them. I think this is very important, right?
And I can relate. I can relate to them as a peer, and with the very senior executives, I found that they have all the answers. It's sometimes it's not articulated, but it's there. Have absolutely all the answers. We're talking about very accomplished leaders. My role is not to tell them what to do. My role is to create the conditions for them to find the answers. And most of the time it involves me shutting up and not speaking and letting them, and I have zero insecurities about that. I can just hold the space without saying a word, sometimes for an hour. And they will discuss, and I can just be encouraging them with a sign of the head or looking at one person who hasn't spoken for a while, but they will figure it out.
Right, yeah.
I'm just channeling my energy to help them, but I don't need to speak.
Yeah, and you don't need to tell them, I'm going to be holding your energy so you get the answers.
No, that's going to make them run away in the opposite direction. So it takes, there's not that many retreat leaders who are trained to operate in that space, and so that creates a niche, and that works for us. But there's many other spaces for retreat leaders to be extremely successful.
Oh my God, yes. And for me, the whole idea is that you should not be where everyone is at, right? Like not like, there's always a place where most of the prices fall. Usually right now it's between the $2,000 and the $3,000 per ticket on like a regular retreat.
There's a market for retreats at $200. There's a market for retreats at $2,000. And I can tell you there's a market for retreat at $50,000.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And I really love this, because if you are the expert and you can really, 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 for real, not just like think that you can, but really provide people with the process to get the results, right? The process, not the actual result, right? But guide them through that to really get what they want. People will pay you whatever you want in a way, because if it's a problem, it really needs for them, like solving it means they're going to change their lives. Is it worth whatever the price of your retreat is? If you're the best, right? If you go through the courses, if you train, if you really learn how to hold space and really like honing into what you said about being able to, like, for example, if anyone here listening is thinking, oh, I want to do like corporate retreats, I would like really invite you to ask yourself the question, can I really be in a space where people are going to be rolling their eyes at me if they don't like it, right? Can I be in a space where I am actually flexible with the needs of the group, right? So very much releasing the ego in a way, right? And being like able to see what's going on. Can I actually get myself out of my high horse and think that because I love cacao ceremonies, everyone is gonna love cacao ceremonies? These kind of questions, I think, are very important for anyone who's considering doing corporate retreats. Do I understand the market? Do I understand the people in the corporate space? Or do I actually have like these, you know, there's a lot of people who have this feeling, oh my gosh, the corporate world, so bad, it's horrible. Like, why would you put yourself in a place full of corporate people if you don't like them, right? Like really knowing your strengths. And then if you're like, yes, I can be flexible. Yes, I can be with the eye rollers. Yes, I can stay silent for an hour if that's what they need. I can find a way on how I can merge practices with also the business piece of actually going into a corporate retreat, because we all know, right? And if you don't know, maybe, okay, maybe not everyone knows, but like if someone is hiring you for a corporate retreat, they're looking for a result for the corporation, right? They're looking to improve something in the office, wouldn't they?
Hopefully.
Yeah, like they're like, honestly, if not, they take people on a holiday to Greece and they let them just get drunk, right? And then the employee is happier.
Yeah, but that's the point, I think, of these retreats that we're talking about here. This is not a team reward, an incentive trip where, as you say, take people to Greece or Mexico and they can get drunk every night. This is not also, the gimmicky team bonding where you do a rope course or you do the back fall and they catch you. I mean, these things just
dog goose.
Yeah. These things just do not work. It's a complete waste of time and it's a complete waste of money. True transformation requires extremely thoughtful planning and has to be done with facilitators who know how to create a space for transformation. And it takes time. And it's by holding the space that we can create the conditions for the team to transform themselves. Teams have to be willing to do that effort. A lot of corporate teams say, "Oh, I'll do the afternoon on the beach, and we'll, have a cooking class and we'll cook the meal." Okay, great. If that's the kind of effort that you're willing to put to create a high-performing team, I can tell you where you'll be in a year, and that's exactly in the same place you are today.
Calling me.
Because you're not prepared
Fabrice,
to do the work.
I need you. Come back. That's where they will be, honestly. Look,
Exactly.
I get a lot of people in this space, in my space, right? Like that, right? Like they're like, oh my gosh, I wish I hired you like 10 months ago, a year ago. And I'm like, okay, well, it took you a while, but now you're here, right? Now in the program, now you can do the things. Now we can work towards that goal. So it's never too late. But of course, it's better when people are clear about what
I'm not sure the retreats, the leaders who don't feel that they really need to invest time and emotional energy into building their team, like they usually don't come back after a year because I don't think they know what would work for them, and that's okay. As I said, we don't need 100% market share, but sometimes I wish I could help, but as we say, we can bring the horse to the river, we cannot force it to drink. So
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, like people want change, transformation, regardless if it's a corporate retreat or a private retreat or a personal retreat. They need to like have a desire for it. Like no one can be helped if they don't want to be helped, right? So I truly agree with you, even though I do believe they should like think twice and be like, call you back. But I understand how like the behavior would work, the behavior pattern on that. Oh my gosh, Fabrice, this is so good. Is there anything else you want to share with people? Like, honestly, I hope every one of you are like so inspired by what like Fabrice does, because this is really transforming. Forget about the CEOs. Think about that cousin, that person that you know that maybe works for a bank and is always complaining about the boss who doesn't listen to them. And then suddenly one day, maybe in a little while, maybe in a year or something, they actually come back and they're like, hey, something changed. Right? So it's not just about like, oh, all the people on the only the people on the top. It's like, think about the ripple effect.
Of course, of course, of course. That's why, you know, what we do is a calling almost, right? It really helps transform the corporate world one leader at a time, one leadership tip at a time, and then it ripples down. So
yeah, and I truly like understand you. Like me also coming from a corporate background, like I know the need for this. I wish I had more. I had actually I would say I was kind of like lucky in a way. But like I had a great team and there was always this space and we had the budget and we had like all the things and it was absolutely amazing. But I do know that when I was in another office before, it was not the same. So I know the difference, right? And I know how huge difference it can make for the team and how your life can be like a completely 180-degree change. So look, if any of you are like here listening to this and you're thinking, well, maybe I got what I need, right? Like just like book a call with me and let's figure out if that's really the right path for you or not. Because the way it works is like slightly different than everything else like we've been speaking about. So you want to make sure that before you endeavor yourself into corporate retreats, you know it's the right path for you. You have the skill sets that is needed. You have the patience that is needed, right? All the different pieces. And then you go into corporate retreats. So anyway, just, you know, if you want a helping hand, just give me a call. I'll be happy to chat with all of you. And Fabrice, this has been absolutely amazing. I mean, like, I could stay talking to you forever. This is so powerful. And I really think that you brought this very important things into the conversation. Like there's no fast track, right? I think this is so powerful. Like no fast track for spirituality, for growth, has to be stable, right? You need to like keep doing the things that are actually practical in your life. I really love that work, right? Like things are practical for you to implement in your life, whether it be meditation, jogging, cooking, it doesn't really matter, whatever your practice is, but it's something that's practical so you can actually implement it in your life that goes with your style, right? Like maybe, you know, we can have another conversation another time about Enneagrams. And also, I would say something that's very important is how corporate retreats are completely different than your regular retreats or your private retreats, and how corporate is such important. It's a necessity to go there. Also, niching down, knowing your market, going to this 1%, making sure you're an expert, right? This is like if you can take anything from this whole conversation, I would say really become the expert on what you do, become the best, right? Really go for it, strive for excellence, right? Not for perfection, but strive for excellence, right? Really put everything in your power so then you can support more people, right? So you can really help people change and transform their lives. Because as you said it very, very well, Fabrice, we're not here just because it's a nice and easy paycheck. We're here because we have passion, we want to change the world, and we want more people to experience this. So, oh my gosh, see how many like important points you gave us through like this conversation. It's crazy.
Well, happy to help if it helps.
Of course, no, I'm sure like I am loving it. So Fabrice, how can people find you? I know in the show notes we're gonna have the link for people to go download your book. I read it. Please like know that it's amazing. So definitely go download it. And then how else can people connect with you if they're like interested on like, you know, maybe we have here a CEO listening to us who's interested in hiring like a top corporate retreat leader.
Well, follow me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest, and all my information is on LinkedIn, my website, and email address and the rest. So LinkedIn is probably the best place to start.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Fabrice, for being here. And for all of you, if you like this episode or you can think of someone who would really benefit from listening to it, please forward it to them. We want more people to become aware of what's happening behind the scenes in retreats. And look, this is a growing market. It's not going anywhere. People need these more than ever. So make sure you spread the word with other people. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Wow, what a great episode. If you like our podcast, How to Run Profitable Retreats, leave us a review and share it with a friend.